look, we're looking to sweep you guys. You wanted us. You were crying out that you bypassed the harder team in Miami Heat.
Rose came down bad on his left foot. See him holding onto his knee and down.
It was the night of April 28, 2012. The first seed in the East, the Chicago Bulls, was facing the 8th, the Philadelphia 76ers. The game was a couple of minutes away from reaching its conclusion, and everything had gone as expected. 99-87, the Bulls have the lead and possession of the ball. Last year's MVP, Derrick Rose, is about to close the game out with an outstanding performance, and Chicago is going home with a win. Rose, still with the momentum that got him 23 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists, beats his defender of the dribble and cuts to the basket. In a sudden move that pushes him towards the rim, he loses control as he feels a sharp pain in his left knee and falls to the floor, collapsing in agony. This moment redefined Derrick Rose's career, and now, with almost a decade of hindsight at our disposal, it's time to talk about why this play is so important and how the calamity changed the course of sports history forever. Derrick Martyr Rose was born on October 4, 1988, in Chicago, Illinois. He attended Simeon Career Academy High School, where he won 2 state championships, something unprecedented in the state of Illinois. But it wasn't until he graduated from high school that Rose positioned himself in the national spotlight. During his time at the University of Memphis, he took his team to the NCAA championship game before losing to the Kansas Jayhawks. Rose, in 40 games, averaged 15 points, 5 assists, and 4.5 rebounds, making a huge impression on NBA scouts with his athletic prowess, ability to complete seemingly impossible passes, and above all, his capacity to constantly and significantly improve year after year. And that's how the Chicago Bulls ended up drafting him with the first overall pick of the 2008 draft. Upon his arrival, Rose felt right at home. He had a fabulous first season, averaging 16.8 points and 6.4 assists per game. His game was not completely polished at this point, however. His defense left a lot to be desired, and he was not the leader of the team yet. But with his help, the Bulls won more games than they were projected to, and pushed the Celtics to 7 games in the first round, despite Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Rondo giving spectacular performances, thus producing one of the most exciting playoff series of the last 30 years. Derrick Rose during his first postseason scored more points, grabbed more rebounds, and improved his shooting percentage. When rookies reach the playoffs, what happens for the most part is that their weaknesses are exploited and their productivity plummets. But Rose showed that when his team needed him the most, he raised his game to levels that no one imagined achievable. The following season he took a leap, and with Ben Gordon out of the lineup, he officially became the team leader. In the playoffs he had an admirable duel against LeBron James, but his team was eliminated in just 5 games. The potential Rose displayed was immeasurable. At only 21 years old, he had already been crowned as the most athletic point guard in the history of the sport, and the expectations became more demanding with each passing day. The question, as the 2010-2011 season approached, was whether Derrick would take yet another leap or if he would remain a promise yet to be fulfilled. The answer today we know is complicated, but in May 2011, it wasn't. Derrick Rose was not only the future of the NBA, but also its present. In his third season in the league, he averaged 25 points, 7.7 assists, and 4.1 rebounds, with the highest 3-point shooting percentage of his career. He led the league in offensive box plus minus, and his defensive rating improved by 10 points per 100 possessions compared to his rookie year. His win shares doubled, and his efficiency shooting near the rim skyrocketed. LeBron James himself, who was one of the strongest candidates to take the MVP, said that Rose deserved to win the Most Valuable Player award that season. That was the level of admiration Derrick had evoked throughout the league. The Bulls finished with the best record in the East, getting 21 more victories than in 2010, but in the playoffs they had no escape from the Miami Heat, and lost in 5 games. Rose had one of the worst series of his career. Having averaged 30 points and 10 assists in the conference semifinals, against the Heat, he had just 23.4 points and 6.6 assists, scoring a ghastly 35% from the field, due to the incredible job LeBron did defending him, especially in games 4 and 5. But either way, at the end of the day, it was just a bump in the road. Derrick Rose had become the youngest MVP in the history of the association, finished the season with more than 2,000 points scored, and failures are necessary to eventually reach the top, right? It took LeBron 9 years to get his first championship, Jordan 7, and Kobe didn't receive a Finals MVP until his 12th year. Rose was in his 3rd, and he had time to spare. The 2012 season was shortened because of the lockdown, but Derrick came back ready to go. One of the reasons Rose was so attractive to scouts when he was in college was because even though his scoring skills were elite, his priority first and foremost was to make the game easier for his teammates. And that was what he focused on this season, averaging more assists and fewer turnovers per game than in his MVP season, which was a sign that his IQ and intellect on the court were soaring. During the 2012 season, Rose was very successful against his conference arch-rival, the Miami Heat, and with the aging Celtics out of the way, it wasn't crazy to assume that this was the year the Bulls would reach the finals for the first time since Michael Jordan retired in 1998. Chicago had the best record and the best defense in the entire NBA. Joakim Noah, Carlos Boozer, and Luol Deng were an excellent supporting cast for Rose, and now it was just a matter of pushing through and winning the East. And that is the story of Derrick Rose before April 28, 2012. The poster child of the story that every kid dreams of one day living, growing up to play for your hometown team, win the Rookie of the Year award, and the MVP, and be selected to all NBA teams like it's nothing. Take your team to the playoffs with the best record. Sign one of the biggest sneaker deals ever. What more could you hope to achieve at just 23? But now, that story only exists in the collective memory of fans who know that reality is much harsher than that. Derrick Rose tore his anterior cruciate ligament, and nothing was ever the same again. His team was eliminated by the 8th seed without him, then he completely missed the following season. In 2014, he stepped on the court for 10 games, and in 2015 for 51, shooting below 40% from the field in those games. By 2016, the Bulls' championship window was closed, and the hope for the foreseeable future had become dire, despite Rose starting the season healthy, because it only ended up reaffirming the fact that the injury that set all this in motion turned Derrick Rose into a shell of his former self. The injuries were frequent and cruel. His worst attributes were exacerbated by the fragility of his body, and the spirit of him who had once been the youngest MVP in history was broken. Rose was traded to the Knicks in the summer of 2016, and many believed that it would turn out to be a breath of fresh air, not only for the Bulls and Derrick, but also for all the fans who had already waited 4 years to see their favorite player in action once again. And although his numbers in New York were very similar to those of his rookie season, his defense was as mediocre as ever, and the enthusiasm for seeing him play was just about gone due to his inconsistency. And inconsistency is the word that should be used if you want to sum up Derrick Rose's career between 2012 and 2017. Although there were glimpses that reminded us of the almighty point guard he once was, it never materialized into a full, solid season. 2017 was a very strange year for Rose. On the night of January 9, just before a game against the Pelicans, he disappeared, and it wasn't until many hours later that he notified the team that he didn't show up to the game due to a family emergency. Because of this, he was fined $200,000. Then in November, after being traded to the Cavaliers, he took time away from the team to reassess his career and possibly retire at only 28 years of age. He eventually returned to the team but was later traded. And finally, we reached the last phase of Rose's career. At least for now. Since 2018, he finally found comfort coming off the bench and had his best season since 2012, averaging 18 points. On October 31st, 2018, he scored 50 points against the Jazz, giving him one of the most cathartic experiences any athlete has had. The possibility of his selection to the All-Star game was even floated around. In Detroit, he embraced this new phase of his career and paid off. Last season, he averaged 25 points per 36 minutes compared to 24 during his MVP season, and a couple of years ago, he received an excellent $15 million contract. The tragic story of Derrick Rose is not an inspirational one. Being a prodigy since the age of 16, he fulfilled his promise at a very early age, and left a legacy that will be remembered by every basketball fan forever. But his career tells us more about how hard it really is, how difficult to stay on top even for a couple of years, how exhausting it is to fight without receiving anything in return, and that life sometimes has a different plan for us than the one we would have chosen. Throughout his life, Rose has been involved in controversial issues that I cannot do justice to by discussing them here. What I can do is leave you with this. Rose, on the court, is an inspiration for everyone who has fallen, and is rising once again.